weekly breakdown of every NASCAR Cup Series race. Here are your hosts, Kevin Batstone, NASCARSky, and Jeff Davis.
Welcome back, race fans, to another episode of Mash the Gas podcast. My name is Kevin Batstone. Joining me shortly is Mr. Jeff Davis. If you follow NASCARSky on social media, you know that her internet is out, so we're going to let her sit this week out and go ahead and run this thing. The show must go on. We're here to break down all the action from the Quaker State 400 under the lights. A lot of action here, Jeff. Who mashed it?
Man, it was quite a crash fest, man. But Chase Elliott did come out with his win, first win of the year. Awesome for his 20th career win. Last time he won was, here in Texas. So it was really nice to see the hometown boy getting his second win in Atlanta. And amongst other natives to, Georgia, his dad is the only one that actually had 5 wins there in Atlanta. So really cool for Chase Elliott, and big shout out getting his win. He was the most in points, without a win already. This puts him really high up in the standings, Kevin.
Yeah, just an overall good performance by those guys. I mean, he was up front leading laps, led 41 laps. Was in the conversation all day. Good run. Those guys needed it. They've been hearing about, when is Chase going to win? When's Chase going to win? I didn't think it was going to come at Atlanta, to be honest with you, Jeff, but it was a tough race to predict when half the field got wiped out, not even halfway through this race. So, you had mentioned, his first win since Texas of 2024. So, you can't really call it 2 back-to-back mile-and-a-half wins, although it technically is a mile-and-a-half. We know this runs like a super speedway, and it certainly felt like one, Jeff. I mean, they were wreck-festing like crazy, and then things kind of calmed down there in that final stage.
Yeah, it really was a crazy race, man. It's like there were technically only 4 cars that weren't involved in a wreck. I mean, everyone got tagged in one way or another for the most part. But other than Chase Elliott, Chris Buescher, Cole Custer, and Tyler Reddick, those are the only 4 cars that didn't get involved in any of those pileups. I mean, that first one we saw was like 20 cars, and it was just amazing to see how many cars in the carnage. A lot of money got spent on this race, Kevin. But it is really cool now to see Chase Elliott up there. Really changes the point standings. Bubba Wallace is now 23 in the positive, and Ryan Preece is 23 behind the cut line. So it's going to be a really tough battle between those two. And now we just need Alex Bowman to get up there with a win. And now all 4 Hendrick cars would be up there, similar to Penske.
Well, and Bowman's headed back to a place where he won last year at Chicago Street Course, but good luck beating SVG there. So good opportunities there for Hendrick, pile up those points. I mean, we had 11 cars end up on the hook, Jeff, completely out of this race. The best finishing of all those would be David Starr, and he, of course, wrecked on his own there towards the end. Kind of a tough deal for that 66 car. We know they're not real well funded, but it's good to see old David out there making some laps and running with those Cup guys. And let's see, John Hunter Nemechek had our Xfinity fastest lap of the race, so 1 point there. And then, of course, the bracket challenge, Jeff. 93% of brackets are busted on week 1.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, it was cool, like you said, about David Starr, man. 57 years old. We ran into him, up in the booths, the suites last year up in Texas here. Actually, that was earlier this year. But, one of the things that killed me about this race, and one of the reasons I have such a hard time with super speedways, you look at the qualifying and look at the Penske cars and how fast they were. All 3 of their cars were in the top 5. I mean, you had the 22 car getting the pole. You had the 12 car being the P3. Austin Cindric in 2, getting P4. So 3 of the top 4 spots. And then you look at where they finished, and it was just amazing. Austin Cindric in 38th, Ryan Blaney in last place at 40th, and then Joey Logano in 36th. So it really just it goes back to me and my kind of like, I love watching the super speedways as far as the racing. It's exciting, but I just hate seeing some of the results when you see guys that qualify so well and then they're taken out on some bullshit wreck.
Yeah, typical, right? I mean, and Ryan Blaney has felt this more than anybody. I talked about it last week on Mash the Gas last Monday about how Blaney always shows up to these racetracks with fast cars and gets taken out almost every single time. We've seen it at Daytona, we've seen it at Atlanta last year. So, it's frustrating for those guys because they show up, they qualify. I mean, Joey started from the pole, really, really good effort, by those guys to show up without practice, Jeff. I still don't love the fact that on super speedways, we're just showing up, qualifying and racing. I don't understand why we can't have at least 1 hour of practice for these guys to get some sort of a setup in this car. But either way, to outpace the field like that right off the truck and then end up, like you said, 36 on back, it's a tough day for Team Penske.
Yeah, it really was, man. But what it really I thought was super cool about this race though is actually probably the last like 15 laps when we saw Chase Elliott and Brad Keselowski and Alex Bowman and Tyler Reddick, all four just going at it, going back and forth, changing, front and back. Just, it was awesome to watch these guys race. And Brad Keselowski and Alex Bowman on those last, like, say, 4 laps, Alex, he kind of had that thought of like, okay, I can still get him. I can get P2 and maybe even go for the win. And he started getting into Brad just a little bit as far as taking the air off of his side. And then he started thinking about it, and he became a team player right there in my eyes. He was like, you know what? If I do this, this could put Brad ahead of me and put him closer to Chase Elliott. So I think he really did back off of Brad Keselowski a little bit so that he could make sure Chase Elliott maintained the lead and gave him the win. So total props to the number 48 car of Alex Bowman and helping out his teammate. Great teamwork there, man.
Yeah, and I think, out of all the super speedway style races, I think we see the most excitement at Atlanta, just because we have that tight draft packs on such a shorter distance, right? We're used to this being over a mile longer in terms of Talladega and Daytona. So you have all this action going on, all this passing. We had the 3 wide finish there last year, back and forth, back and forth. BK, was fast all day, led 46 laps, kind of a tough deal for him. He was really looking at this as a big opportunity for him to punch his way into the playoffs. And the other guy that I thought had a lot of speed that I ended up taking in my lineup, started P37, Jeff, was Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Went 2 laps down at one point after making contact with the wall, got loose, had to bring it down, went 2 down, got back on the lead lap, had a penalty, had to go to the tail end along the line, drove it all the way up, was leading a lap at one point, finished P6.
Man, my fantasy league got killed this week. Like, literally, out of, you got your 5 drivers and you got your one in the garage. The only one that finished like in the top 25 was actually Brad Keselowski. That was the only one. Knocked me down in points a hell of a lot. But overall it was a fun race to watch. And we had 46 different lead changes. We had 13 different leaders. Brad Keselowski leading, like you said, the 46 laps. Alex Bowman led 32. But just it was a very interesting race, and I just all the carnage that we see, the big wrecks. I know they're exciting for people to watch on TV, and they go, "Oh man, NASCAR is a blast to watch this kind of stuff." But like Sky comes to say a long time, she's like, "This is the kind of racing that it gets old a little bit because it's not as fun to watch if you're a true NASCAR fan, and it's kind of unfortunate that so many cars get caught up in this that ran so well." Like, everyone got tapped. Like I said, there were only 4 cars that really did not really have much damage at all. And that first wreck, I believe it was Danny Hamlin that got into John Hunter Nemechek just a little bit on lap 69, and that's what led to the more than 20 cars getting tagged up in that wreck, and everyone just got tangled. I'm glad they revamped the repairing rules, being able to go into the garage and being able to come back out. I think it's good that guys took their time to kind of get their cars fixed. Christopher Bell did a pretty damn good job of it and was able to get back out there. So yeah, it was an interesting race, Kevin.
Yeah, this damaged vehicle policy is interesting because it's so case by case basis. I mean, we saw the 11 on the clock, and NASCAR said, "Oh yeah, you guys are good. Go ahead and repair it." And then 30 minutes were up, and they came by and said, "Nah, no, you guys can't go back out there." So Denny was like, "Well, that was a waste of time for these crew guys trying to get the car back out there." So I'd like to see it be a little clearer on, what is repairable, what isn't, what's the time limit. There's like so much uncertainty. We knew last year that, it was 5, 7 minutes, whatever it was, which I thought was too little. Let these guys work on the cars and get back out there. Because, I mean, as we saw, there was at least probably about 10 points up for grabs for the guys that were able to fix their car and get back out there. And, Christopher Bell ended up P30. That's a 10-point swing there. So, kind of tough deal there with the damaged vehicle policy. But, this does shake things up, not only with the bracket challenge that we have here in season, but when we look at the playoff standings now, Bubba Wallace just above that cut line there, 23 to the positive, Bowman 39 to the positive, Chris Buescher. Hell of a run there by Buescher with him and Chase Elliott making contact on the front straightaway. That was a hard hit. I'm surprised those guys didn't wreck, left a donut on the side of that 9 car. But, I think, again, like I was saying, guys like Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Brad Keselowski, Ryan Preece, this was an opportunity for them to go out there, snag a win, and lock themselves in the playoffs. Because now, Jeff, we're heading to 2 road courses, which is not Brad Keselowski's favorite place to be.
Yeah, it really isn't. But the point standings, it really did, switch quite a bit of stuff up. Like I said, Chase Elliott regardless of the win that he just had, he's had the most points and had the actual best finishes in like the last 10 to 12 races as far as points go, if you average them out. And that's why he was so much in the positive as far as points without a win. But now you got Tyler Reddick there at 128 points in the positive. So, unless we see four different winners, Tyler Reddick's probably easily going to make it into the playoffs. And, he's not too bad on road courses. But Chase Elliott, he hasn't won yet in a next gen car on a road course yet. But who's not to say he can't do it? I think he can. He's been running really, really well. And by the way, I loved his paint scheme this week. It was really cool. Shout out to his foundation. Anyone that supports children and children's hospitals, I think that's absolutely wonderful. It was nice seeing Chase Elliott get up in the stands, cheering with his fans, getting up there and just having a damn good time. So again, man, Chase Elliott just crushed it. I love it. Go Chase.
Well, and you can see why he is NASCAR's most popular driver. I mean, it kind of reminds me of Dale Jr. a little bit in the sense of, you go to the racetrack, all we used to see was Junior shirts. Now it's mostly Chase shirts. And, Junior didn't win a whole lot of races in the scheme of thing. I mean, sure, he had 27 over the course of his career. Most of those came in the 8 car with DEI. When he was with Hendrick there, Jeff, there was a lot of dry spells for that 88 car back when he had the Mountain Dew on board. And he was still NASCAR's most popular driver. And I think Chase shows on and off the track why he's such a likable guy and why Mr. H keeps him around. That was cool to see Chase hop out in victory lane there and get on the horn with Mr. H and say, hey, I got you another win, because we know they're in the 300 club, Jeff.
They are, and that's so cool. I mean, Chase Elliott, he's always got such a calm demeanor. We've talked about it. It's like, whether he's like super happy or kind of, disappointed during a race, he always kind of just has that little kind of a monotone, just kind of just a cool attitude of just, it is what it is. This is how it was, whether he wins or loses. This one was completely different, Kevin. This one, he got out there. He was totally stoked. I thought it was super cool, man. But like I said, to see Alex Bowman really kind of give him the opportunity to get that without having Brad Keselowski, trying to run him down. Great teamwork there. Unfortunately, Kyle Larson came in P17 and William Byron, who's got, way up there in the points and 3 wins there. He finished P37. So it's interesting to kind of see, you and I were kind of talking about it before the race. And we were like, Penske's just mad fast right now. And the Chevys just don't have it going on right now. So to see, 2 of the Hendrick drivers in the top 3 was pretty fortunate.
Yeah, and the Toyotas definitely were struggling too. I mean, we saw them have some struggles in the beginning. That first stage, I mean, people were all over the place, wrecking loose and just fighting ill-handling race cars. So interesting race. I mean, how the track changed. We had a little bit of weather in the area, so all that kind of played into the strategy of the race. But, I mean, not much you can do when you're in the middle of the big one. You just kind of hold on for the ride. And that shook up the bracket so much, Jeff. I'm looking at this as we head to round 2. I mean, Ty Dillon, took out the number 1 seed, Denny Hamlin. So that alone busted some brackets. Kyle Larson got eliminated by Tyler Reddick. That busted your bracket.
I'm done.
So we look at some of these matchups coming next week. It's just tough to pick. I mean, Keselowski versus Ty Dillon, Bowman versus Bubba Wallace, Nemechek versus Elliott, Jones versus Stenhouse, Buscher versus Smith, Gibbs versus Allmendinger, Hocevar versus Reddick, and Gregson versus Priest. And so then we'll narrow it down as we get closer and closer to Indy for the final winner. But I'll be amazed if someone nails this bracket perfectly. I know Dale Jr. has Chris Buscher going all the way.
Yeah, I really don't know if anyone's going to get this at all, just because, like you said, what 91% got knocked out,
something like that.
Something crazy like that. But as far as Ty Gibbs, I mean, he was the best finishing driver of the entire Gibbs stable for this race. I still call it Atlanta Motor Speedway, even though they changed the name to EchoPark Speedway. They just add a little paint, bought the place, but I'll always refer to it as that. Kind of like how every once in a while call the Xfinity the Nationwide, just old school habits. But anyway, yeah, with Joe Gibbs, Ty Gibbs finishing P14, Christopher Bell finishing a P30, Denny Hamlin in P31, and Chase Briscoe in P35. Again, another rough day for a really good team between Gibbs and Penske. They just didn't survive. And it's not a matter of having a great car and being able to race really well and have good qualifying. It was just getting caught up in the fray. And that's exactly what we see at Speedway racing.
Every time, it's like clockwork for sure. So, those that got through and survived, good on them. I mean, Connor Zilic, his first Super Speedway run in the Cup Series, brings it home, P11 in that 87 car there. Another top 10 for Carson Hocevar. We talked about Ty Dillon getting a good finish there. But, typically, Jeff, we really see, I don't want to throw mud at Ty Dillon, but I don't think we're going to see him run top 10 a whole lot outside of these style of races. It's just, an underfunded team. Not that he lacks talent or anything like that, but I mean, when half the field wrecks, your chances of getting a top 10 go up, dramatically. So, all in all, I think the fans enjoyed it that were there. It was a great crowd on hand. It was hot. It was humid down there. That's why we call it Hot Atlanta. Still not sure why they put it on the schedule this time of year, Jeff, with just how hot and muggy it gets down there. But, on to Chicago.
Tough.
Yeah, yeah.
It is tough. It really is tough. When you go to Atlanta this time of year, like I said, it's hot, it's muggy, and it makes these drivers miserable. And, kind of like you're talking about, seeing some of the guys in this race that finished in the top 15, not that often we're going to see, Cody Ware, Connor Zilich, like you mentioned, Zane Smith. Hell, Zane Smith was in the lead for a few laps. It was just, it was crazy. I was like, Zane Smith, nothing against the guy, but if he actually wins this race against Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski, Bowman, and Tyler Reddick, I would have been surprised. But good for him for getting the top 10. And like you said, Hocevar, again, he's running solid, man. So getting the P10 out of this race, not too shabby.
Yeah, and he's just wild out there, man. Hocevar he'll jam it in there 3 wide. He doesn't care. He'll go to the high side and bump you up the racetrack. Hell, at one point, the 47 was pushing the 77 down the back straightaway. I was like, this should be interesting because I know I had said last week, I don't see the 47 wiping him out at Atlanta. And they ended up working together a little bit to kind of bump draft their way up through the field. So, sometimes your friend can be your enemy, and he's a friend of me if you're going to push each other to the front. And that's exactly what we saw.
Yeah, it is, and sometimes it's better to know. What's the old saying? Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. That's kind of how it is in NASCAR sometimes. But I was reading some interesting facts about the last 5 races that we've actually had, as far as the points that have been scored. Chris Buescher has scored more points in the last 5 races than any other driver. He's scored 183 points. Next to him, just like we were talking about, Chase Elliott scored 179 points in the last 5 races. And then we go on to Denny Hamlin, Eric Jones, Blaney, Reddick, Briscoe, Byron, Keselowski, Bell, a lot of the usual names. But Chris Buescher, we've talked about it for a couple of years now. I mean, he's a damn good driver in that 17 car, and I think he's doing a really good job to see as many points as he's getting, he's going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think RFK as a whole, they have a lot of speed right now. I mean, Ryan Preece is still in this conversation right there just below the cut line. Obviously, we know BK is going to need some things to go his way. I mean, realistically, BK is going to have to win to get in, but there's only 4 spots left in the playoffs, Jeff. I mean, we kind of kicked the can around last week. Are we going to see multiple winners? That depends. Does SVG go out and win the next 2 weeks in a row, and then Watkins Glen next month? That'd be 3 out of the 9 right there, leaving only 6 opportunities for 6 new different winners. So I think it's going to be close. I think we're going to be right there at around 15, possibly 16 winners on the nose. And if that's the case, and you have someone like Tyler Reddick who doesn't have a win yet, this thing could get interesting as we get close to Daytona.
Yeah, and Alex Bowman, he doesn't have a win yet, but he did win in Chicago last year. So I think when we're looking at Chicago in the last 2 races, obviously SVG and Alex Bowman are 2 guys that you have to look at for sure. And I'd put Chris Buescher and Michael McDowell up there as well.
Yeah, I think Bowman had a really good strategy last year. Those guys kind of flipped the pit sequence there a little bit, and that's what you're going to have to do. I mean, we saw guys try to do that in Mexico City, but Shane Van Gisbergen went out there and won the race by 16 seconds, the largest margin of victory since '01. So I have to put SVG as the favorite to win this race, Jeff, just for obvious reasons. I said the same thing about Coda, and he didn't win there. So, we know that the competition can beat SVG on a road course, but it's going to take a mishap on pit road. It's going to take a mechanical failure because SVG is going to be in the top 3, if not win this race.
And one of the things about the pit strategies there, Kevin, is, when you've already got a win and you're in the playoffs, that's when your crew chief decides, okay, are we going to go for stage points, or do we come in and get fresh tires and, 4 fresh field goods and fill her up with some Sunoco before the end of the stage? Whereas if you're already in the playoffs, you want to get those points. So I think we're going to see a lot of that this next weekend.
Yeah, I think so. Guys can roll the dice now, and, especially guys that have a win, they can kind of, goof around and try some different strategies, not only this week, but also the week after, Jeff, when we head to wine country there in Sonoma, back-to-back road courses before we head to the Monster Mile, and then finishing up this in-season bracket at Indy for the Brickyard 400. So a lot of unique racetracks coming up, which gives, drivers opportunities to try to steal a win, if you will. I just can't definitively say who is the favorite in this race. I mean, we're looking at 165 miles around the streets of Chicago, Illinois, 75 laps. Rain has been an issue here 2 years in a row, Jeff. Last year, not as bad as the first, but that also plays into it a bit. We saw it in Mexico City. Lap two started downpouring. They go on the wets. Kyle Busch wrecks. So I'm hoping we get a dry race this year. I really am, because we haven't really seen Chicago at full strength on just slicks all day.
No, and I'm really I'm glad that that short rain delay that we did have here in Atlanta, they really didn't have. We thought it was gonna be like, oh man, the rain's coming down. It's gonna take an hour to get this thing dried off. Didn't rain that bad, and they were able to get on the track pretty damn fast. So I'm glad we didn't have to push this onto a Monday or anything like that. So, overall, like I said, it was a fun race to watch. Did I enjoy all the carnage? Not so much. Did it kill my fantasy? Yeah, it did a little bit as far as, my guys getting picked. I felt like I wasted some usages on it. And there were a couple of people in our league that actually forgot to put in their picks, and they just, didn't even get their bonus picks, and they still finished ahead of me. So I definitely felt like I wasted a few of my picks on this week's fantasy, Kevin.
Well, again, it's just one of those things. It's such a tough race to predict, and I think Chicago is going to be pretty similar. But a quick shout out to Nick Sanchez for winning the Xfinity race. Also rain delayed, pretty late into the night there. The race finished up just after midnight local time, and Nick Sanchez got the win there in that 48 Chevrolet. And then over on the Truck Series side, really cool. My dad's home racetrack there, Lime Rock Race Park up there. IMSA's run there and some of these other series, but that was the Truck Series debut and the first time that NASCAR has run. NASCAR's premier level has run in the state of Connecticut. So shout out to Corey Heim. Corey Heim is just dominating the Truck Series. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. I'm going to go on record to say he replaces Denny Hamlin in that 11.
On fire, man. That was a great. I loved watching that race. It was great. I mean, there's no grandstands whatsoever. And from what you were telling me earlier, that your dad actually went to high school pretty much right across the street for the most part from the track, and it was cool to see without any grandstands at all, to see all those people come out with their lawn chairs and their tents watching this road course run around. Great race. I thought that was almost more fun to watch than the other two races. So really cool to see him out there.
Yeah, great race fans in the New England area. I grew up in central New Hampshire. We got New Hampshire Motor Speedway coming up in the playoffs, which I'm going to be at. A lot of great race fans up there, and so for those guys that live up there, they have Loudon, and then they would have to commute out to either Dover or Pocono. So it's good to expand the footprint. I like the fact that NASCAR is showing up at new tracks, trying some different things. And the rumorville, Jeff, next year there's negotiations, because this is year 3 for Chicago, and this is a contract year. They did 3 years, and I'm hearing that San Diego, California is in play for the NASCAR street race next year. And I'll tell you what, man, I'm pretty excited about that opportunity.
I really think that would be cool. I heard the same thing, man. And I was like, I think that would be almost a better venue than Chicago. There's too many 90 degree turns on when you run in Chicago, especially if you get any chance of showers and stuff like that. And being right there on Lake Michigan, there's always a chance for showers. Temperatures change dramatically. But I think it'd be cool to see them run in San Diego. That would be pretty damn cool.
I've been out there a couple times to San Diego. It's a beautiful city. Looking at it, possible track layouts. I mean, I wouldn't be the one making this call, but I think it would be really cool to see him kind of race down through Harbor View there. They have coming out from the airport over there, North Harbor Drive, I think is the name of it. North Harbor Drive kind of brings you down right next to the water. Coronado Bridge. I don't really know if I could see these guys going down Mission Boulevard there, where Roberto's Taco Shop is, and the Ferris wheel. It would be cool to see him race through there, but I think it's going to cause too many hiccups. So, I can really see North Harbor Drive, and then maybe them coming across over by where that restaurant is that Tom Cruise did Top Gun at. Either way, if that's the case, we got to go to this thing next year, Jeff. I mean, I had some interest to go to Chicago for this, but I think I'd be more excited to go to San Diego, hit the beach, get a burrito, watch some racing.
Yeah, it'd be pretty damn cool. My company's based out of San Diego, so it'd be cool to get down there and go to headquarters and hang out for a little while and work out of San Diego, because it's just a beautiful city. As far as the atmosphere, the vibe there, I really really like it. Just a really beautiful area. I think it's probably one of the coolest parts of California, that and Lake Tahoe. But seeing Chicago off of the circuit next year wouldn't break my heart at all.
Yeah, no, I like the idea that they're going to rotate it. Maybe do 3 years in San Diego, and then I could see Miami, New York. I don't know if Denver would be in play. It could be Dallas. I could possibly see, but with Texas Motor Speedway there, I think they want to capture markets that don't have, racetracks. Hell, I'd love to see Chicagoland Speedway come back, Jeff. That thing's just sitting there growing weeds out of it. It's going to be like North Wilkesboro here in the next few years. I mean, we have a great oval, a mile and a half, just sitting there in Chicago. I say bring that back.
Yeah, I do too. I would rather see that than the street course out in Chicago, man. It's a great track. It's a sister track to basically Kansas City almost. So I think it would be good to get back there to, down there to Chicago on that oval, and get rid of the street course.
Yeah, I'd be good with it. We're still not sure what the 2026 schedule looks like. There's a lot of uncertainties, as far as where we're going to go for the Clash. Do we go back to Bowman Gray? Do we take the All-Star race somewhere other than North Wilkesboro? Mexico City is still uncertain. There's just a lot of things that are up in the air, and we usually start hearing some announcements over the next few months before we get to the playoffs. So, but yeah, I mean, as far as this week goes, we're on to Chicago, buddy. We're they make my favorite hot dogs out there. I love them Chicago dogs.
The Chicago dogs are good, man. But I will say this about Mexico City, since we're on the subject of it. We were talking about Tab Boyd getting fired from Hayek Motorsports for the spotter for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. for making some comments that regarding Mexico and the safety and how he kind of got mugged out there and it was a ripoff. And then Christopher Bell with in the 20 car, Joe Gibbs picked him up for Atlanta. Been a long time partner, Stevie Reeves, being quitting on the race at the All-Star race. So really cool to see Tab Boyd get back into the spot literally within 1 week and being able to get there with an actually probably better team. Probably got a little bit of a pay bump there as well. So glad to see him back in there.
Yeah, all's well that ends well, and that was a kind of a blessing and a curse for him. Made some comments about Mexico, get booted off the team, and end up with a better one. So, and obviously we saw Carson Hocevar get fined 50 grand from Spire from his comments. So, I think a couple guys learned their lesson about taking NASCAR out of the country, and I'll just be curious to see if we do it again. I mean, the fan turnout there was good. I think from a logistics perspective, having to drive these trucks, we did the math on it, Jeff. It was something ridiculous. Puts a lot of headaches on those guys. So all that in consideration, I say let's do the San Diego street course. Let's bring back the Chicago Oval, and that fills in those two spots right there.
Yeah, I'd agree there, man. One last thing though about Atlanta, Tyler Reddick getting P4. I thought it was cool to be able to finish in the top five because this was his 200th career start win in the 45 car. So I thought it was really cool that he's able to get that P4 out of it, Kevin.
Yeah, and he needs it. The 45's been struggling. I mean, those guys, we talked about it with the brakes last week at Pocono, and just a lot of hiccups for those guys. So hopefully the 45 and the 23 can kind of get back on track. 23XI, Denny had said on Actions Detrimental that they're just a little off right now, and they're hoping to button it up when it counts because we know how this thing goes. I mean, drivers start to get hot in the summertime, and you carry that momentum into the playoffs. So I would not count Tyler Reddick out just yet. And I think I'm going to go ahead and put him in my lineup this weekend, Jeff. He finished P2 here last year to Alex Bowman. So good opportunity for Reddick to get up there. We've seen him flex his muscles on road courses before, so I think that'd be a good pick.
Yeah, I think it would too, and right now he's in really good position with points. Like you said, he's 128 points in the positive above the cutoff line. And it's nice to see Bubba Wallace in 23 points above. So 23-11, they've got both their drivers in so far. They're in the playoffs. If anyone's going to get it done, it's going to be Tyler Reddick. Bubba Wallace, I think, has got his work out for him because I think Ryan Preece is right on his tail and can definitely jump in there if he doesn't get a win. We've got, like you said, we've got some races that are kind of unpredictable that are not regular cookie cutter mile and a halves. And Ryan Preece, I think, does a pretty good job of both of them. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see him get above that cutoff line. So it's going to be a good race to see between he and Bubba Wallace. But, Alex Bowman, he does need a win. He's not that far off. He's only 39 in the positive. So we're going to have to see what happens with the 48 car and see if they can get all their cars in the playoffs.
They're going to need to qualify well. Track position is going to be key here at the Chicago street course. Third time going back, so these guys have a little bit more familiarity with it. We have more notes. Our first year there, Jeff, it was raining like hell. we had some delays, and Shane Van Gisbergen, of course, got his inaugural win, his first win at our inaugural event there. And, again, Hendrick was right there in the conversation, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson. I think this might be an opportunity for Kyle Busch as well. AJ Allmendinger, we always talk about him being the road course ringer, but not great finishes here. He wrecked last year, finished 38th. Year before that, finished P17. But I wouldn't sleep on the Dinger. I think he's got the speed and the experience. Him and Michael McDowell are no brainers for my lineup.
Well, it's really tough out there in Chicago, especially if we have weather, like you said, the last 2 years. Because, like you said, the very first inaugural race and his very first win was SVG. I mean, I love Gizzy. He's got a great attitude, man. I dig the guy. But he finished dead last year. He finished P40 in Chicago, got wrecked. So, it's just one of those tracks that's got a lot of variables in it. But if I'm going to go for, if I had to pick someone just kind of I don't know, dark horse maybe, but does really well on the road courses, I think I'm going to go with Michael McDowell.
I think that's a good pick for sure. I know Michael McDowell's going to be up there. We saw him qualify well in Mexico City. He just kind of it fits his style a little bit. But I'm going to go ahead and go with a crazy pick here. I know a couple people have picked him, and I'm probably nuts. I'm going to go with Kyle Busch in this 8 car. I think that this fits. It's something he needs. We really haven't seen those guys have the speed on the short tracks, the intermediates. Super speedways are an opportunity. But I think Kyle Busch is hungry enough. We've seen him win on a road course before. He won Sonoma, when he returned with his broken foot. And I think he can get it done, Jeff. I'm going Kyle Busch.
Okay, well, he finished their P9 last year, so he got a top 10 out of it. I think that's a great pick. So yeah, I think it's going to be it'll be a fun race. Third year we've been there, and then maybe that's how they'll decide if it's a race good enough to bring back to Chicago, or do we move it to somewhere like San Diego where we're going to see probably better weather. I mean, every time I've been to San Diego, the weatherman's always like, hey, it's going to be 70 and nice.
Pretty consistent. I love the weather there. Don't know what we're going to see yet in Chicago, those pop-up showers and the lake effect stuff. So, hopefully it'll be good. I mean, they pretty much have to start shutting the city down now, Jeff, to put up these barriers to get the course laid out. I mean, it really affects everyone's routes to work, and it's a bit of a headache for them to have to shut down, a huge portion of Chicago, to get this race in. So I'm sure even the locals would be okay with us moving this thing to go bug San Diego for a while.
Yeah, there were a lot of locals last year that were pretty pissed off about it, clogging up traffic, everything that just took place. But then as far as the fan turnout, it was absolutely great for that first year, especially. So we'll just have to see how it does this year, Kevin. But yeah, it's time to get her moving.
Yeah, it should be good, man. These street courses are hard to predict, and they always create for a lot of action. I know the Truck Series are off for a couple weeks here, Jeff, so we'll turn our attention to the Xfinity Series. They're going to run 50 laps there Saturday, and then we're running 75 there on Sunday. So should be some jam-packed action from the Windy City, Chi-Town. That's all the time we have. NASCARSky will be back with us next week. Let's go left, right. Let's go through streets of Chicago, and until then,
Smash the gas.